Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to the third edition of the inspirational and informative panel series hosted by Emerging Africa Capital Group. My name is Peace Hyde, and I'm your host for this evening, as well as the West African correspondent and head of digital media and partnerships for Forbes Africa. Now, this evening's panel discussion is themed Leading in Disruptive Times, and it's brought to you by Emerging Africa Capacity Building in partnership with the Global Leadership Summit and the excellent men of the Life Place Church. This event is a unique first-class discussion focused on men's leadership, with an exclusive lineup of experts both in the private sector and the public sector. With most of the world facing unprecedented challenges, it has become more imperative than ever before to have the right leadership for African entrepreneurs, CEOs, and youth who are aspiring to position themselves in the business limelight, personal career, or government sectors. To kick off the proceedings, let's welcome our first speaker of the evening, Mr. Valentine Ozigbo. Mr. Ozigbo is a consummate business leader and a business entrepreneur with over 25 years of experience in corporate transformation, power, hospitality, energy, and banking. And that's commercial, retail, investment, and international banking. A multiple award-winning CEO, Mr. Ozigbo is the immediate past president and group CEO of Transnational Corporation of Nigeria PLC, Transcorp, one of Africa's largest conglomerates. He has stepped down from the role in March 2020 and retains a seat on the board of Transcorp PLC, the board of Transcorp PLC Hotels, and on the board of Transcorp Power Limited. He currently chairs the Finance and General Purpose Committee of Transcorp Power Limited, a prominent change leader who advocates for excellence in every sphere of life. Valentine Ozigbo is a leading individual promoter of sports, youth development, and community building in Nigeria. He is also the founder of Valentine Chinieto Ozigbo VCO Foundation, a philanthropic endeavor that focuses on youth empowerment and capacity building. Shared Unusual Praise in 2018, the largest Catholic gospel concert in Africa. He currently also chairs Unusual Entrepreneur, one of the most impactful faith-based entrepreneurship programs in Nigeria. You are most welcome this evening, sir.
Thank you so very much, Peace. I am deeply grateful and honored to be part of this amazing Emerging Markets Conference. Let me start off by acknowledging and appreciating my dear sister from another mother, Toyin Sani, who has been an inspiration to all of us in the corporate world. You know, when you introduced me as award-winning, I wanted to remind you there is a much bigger award winner here. So anyway, I'm honored to be part of this, and I am thankful to God that I found time to be here, because if you know what we go through in politics and on a daily basis, and to find time to actually think and brainstorm with leaders of corporate world in a kind of setting like this, it's wonderful. I'm also honored that I am here to start this conversation with great leaders like John Maxwell, Craig, Cole, and many other amazing individuals who will be speaking after me. I hope my internet is going to be managed, because I'm making this, I'm connecting to this from, pardon me if my internet goes off. And we live in a very difficult time, and rest of Africa in particular, before even the advent of COVID-19. And obviously, COVID-19 has also exacerbated the danger we all fall in. And as a matter of fact, if you go through the history of Nigeria and the way the economy has panned, you will see how it's been such a challenging period. Just trying to carry on, do business, live, and the poverty level, the disparity in income, and all of these issues. And then COVID struck, thereby increasing the momentum and severity of the problem. And in fact, laying bare the problem that we thought we didn't even anyway, obviously, when we have a time like this, also great leaders do emerge. Difficult times call for difficult decisions to be made by leaders. Now, disruptive times call also for disruptors. Disruptors are groundbreakers, trailblazers, who will problem and come up with a new model for history. Global upheavals are produced and great advancement, whether in medicine, education, economic theories, or experience from time to time, especially now that COVID has struck, also should lead to a revolution in some profound ways. People lead the revolution, and if you look back at the people who are called world changers, who make a mark on history, who have done things that are completely amazing. These are actually and were ordinary individuals who caused the disruption at their own time. I want to offer a few ideas and inspiration that will stir the thinking and hearts, hopefully in the days, months, and years to come, that will ultimately inspire someone or some people to take up the grand vision that may be lying fallow, that God has actually deposited in them, and see how they can become a change maker. Because in some cases, all it actually takes is one person to do the right thing, to do the big thing, to do the unthinkable, and he becomes that disruptor. Who are disruptors? When we use that word, who really are called? And the much I can say is disruptors are people with a big idea. They're usually world changing by solving a problem. When the idea is realized, it changes the way we live in a big way. And there are many disruptors we can think of. Of course, the Lee Kuan Yew, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Martin Luther King, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison. There are a lot of pioneers who created and many more. So truly, these are people with great, mighty ideas. There are also those I consider obsessed with those big ideas. It is not just about having a big idea, the level of obsession that they've been shown, because there comes a time, even the idea is challenged, their own comfort is challenged, but the only thing that will carry them on will be their obsession, their commitment, their unadulterated commitment to achieving that solution that they're looking for to solve that world's problem before them. Wake up, fueled by the idea, and go to bed thinking about the idea. Obsession is much more than just being passionate. It's bigger than being passionate. These people think, breathe, eat, sleep, dream their vision. Let me also say that disruptors are people with, I call contrarian thinkers, people who basically reason independently, resist the pressure to conform. They are non-conformists. Instead of thinking inside or even outside the box, they create a new model of boundless thinking. And I must say that indeed, they are the ones that challenge the status quo. They just look at things and question and wonder, can't it be done better? And it can be done this way, and not just conforming with what is acceptable or conforming to what is the norm. They are also number 4, people with limitless possibilities. Disruptors are endless less possibility thinkers. They don't put a ceiling on what is possible, that the vision in their hearts is possible. They are disruptors. Disruptors are people who stir the waters instead of calming them down. They are even considered crazy by the society because they dare to be different. They refuse to play small. They reject the status quo. They know they belong in the big league, and their self-actualization in most cases are innately and internally generated. Because of the revolutionary nature of their thinking, they usually don't find for inspiration and strength to keep on, and has been gender neutral. This is actually deliberate because indeed in the arena of ideas, which is what disruption is about, no gender is especially favored to excel. Brought in down men and women, women with the same brain power as men, and in fact, the physical advantage men used to enjoy in the industrial era is long gone. I look forward to our women in the poll out of the park. This is not a time for negotiating for a seat on the table. Take up your power and create your own table. That's what I would say to the women. And so this is really gender neutral. We've seen also that indeed, whatever indeed a man can do, a woman can possibly do even much, much better. And let's bring this home. When we talk about disruption, there is no continent that needs this as much as Africa. I don't know, I don't want to go into details about the state of affairs on our continent when it comes to human development indicators, our economies, our governments, our educational systems, our businesses, our industries, our cultural orientation and development, our sports, our youth development, our actualization goals. There are several things we can pick on, and we'll spend the entire week discussing how terribly, badly we have fared. I don't want to bore you with, or since we're preaching to the converted, because you all know this. The bottom line is that Africa, in many profound ways, has been left behind. And to be honest, I'm one of those who, basically, I'm totally dissatisfied with the status quo. When I think about the story of an African, the story, the narrative, I feel that indeed a lot more is desired. And indeed, there's a lot more we can do to catch up. I am of the view that incremental progress at the rate we have expressed in the past decade or two will only leave us further behind. What we need is revolutionary leadership, transformationary leadership. And we need that leadership to show up in every sector. We do need disruptors to emerge on the continent in every field. And I want to challenge every young person. Indeed, you could be that disruptor that Africa has been waiting for. It is time that we begin to challenge the status quo. We come up with those big ideas. We begin to shatter the ceiling on what is called boundless possibilities. To invent new models of solving problems, of thinking of living indigenous and fit into our culture and our space. That's what we're looking for. We need outliers who live on the continent, who feel the pulse of our societies, who love the continent to rise up and seize the day. There's been a lot of talk about Africa rising and Africa rising. It's time to actually get it to be done, actualize it. It's time to bring it to bear. We need to see that happen. We are fortunate to have seen that, what I call signals of what is possible, especially when it comes to technology and financial services. These are areas that I believe we are actually, getting close to par with the rest of the world. But where are we on the other, and as with the rest of the world? And actually, we need to science in technology, in entertainment, in sports, in governance, in peace building, in healthcare, all the SDGs, in education, in everywhere that it matters, we need our leaders to rise. With all humility, I consider myself one of those disruptors on this continent. This is why I recently left my post job of the corporate ladder in Nigeria, and the idea here is to be the change that we've been yearning for. I left my role, just as I've been introduced, as the president and group CEO of Transcorp PLC, to dedicate the rest of my life, my next chapter, to public service. I'm presenting myself to the people of Anambra State to lead our state to a place of greatness that we all yearn for. I'm stepping murky waters, but many are also incompetent. Why I would leave my job to get this done is because I know how important this is. There's a time for us to change the narrative, the story. We think that with Anambra, we can point to what is possible on this continent. My answer is that I'm pulled by the belief that Nigeria is a great country and we need to urgently close the leadership gap in order to actualize our dreams. I believe I have the leadership content needed to bring a positive transformation to my people, and that is why I'm running for the office of Governor of Anambra State in 2021. I believe I will be that change you all are looking for. Now, this is not a campaign speech, and so let me bring this to a close by saying the universe is vast and ever expanding. So are the possibilities for our greatness. We are only limited imagination. I'm honored tonight that I'm on this webinar with people I consider role models, and therefore, while I wait to see if there are reactions I need to respond to, I want to sit back and listen in, because by listening, I will obviously be getting rich tonight. God bless you for this time, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ozigbo. That is some amazing insight, and you are one of the disruptors leading change in Africa, not only in the corporate space with your impactful work at Transcorp, but also what you are doing currently as well. So thank you so much for those extremely valuable insights. Moving on swiftly, I would like to welcome Mr. John Maxwell. Now, Mr. Maxwell is a #1 New York Times best-selling author. He's a coach and a speaker who has sold more than 24 million books in 50 languages. Titles include the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership and the 21 Indispensable Qualities of a Leader. Often called the country's #1 leadership authority, Mr. Maxwell has identified as the most popular leadership expert in the world by Inc. magazine in 2014, and he was voted the top leadership professional 6 years in a row on leadershipgurus.net. He is the founder of the John Maxwell Company, the John Maxwell Team and Equip, a non-profit organization that has trained over 5 million leaders in 180 countries. Each year, Mr. Maxwell speaks to Fortune 500 companies, presidents of nations, and many of the world's top business leaders. It is an absolute honor to have you here this evening, Mr. Maxwell.
Last week, I was having a conversation with Rob Hoskins. Rob is the CEO of One Hope, which is the largest children's distributor organization in the world. They literally distribute tens and tens of millions of materials around the world to children. And we were doing a project together. They asked me to do some leadership for some high school kids in Africa. So we put together some material for them. And I was asking him how it was going. And he said, John, you know, we do a lot of a lot of surveys before we start and kind of check out where the kids are. So he said, we started in Ghana. And he said, we asked the high school students, how many of you want to be leaders? And 95% said they did not want to be a leader. And we asked them why, and they said, because leaders are corrupt, leaders manipulate, leaders take advantage of you. He said, John, 95% of them did not want to be leaders. He said, we took them through the leadership material. We asked them at the end, how many of you want to be leaders? And he said, the 95% negative on the front end, when we asked the question after they'd gone through the leadership material, understanding that leaders add value to people, he said 85% wanted to be leaders. It turned on a dime when they understood adding value to people is so essential. Intentionally every day, adding value to people, lifting people is so essential. It's the core of leadership. I had the privilege to be with a lot of presidents of countries. Equip, our nonprofit organization, just works on transformation in countries, and we have 22 countries where presidents have asked us to come in to teach leadership values and how to add value to the people. And so in the process of that, when I'm alone with a leader, when all the media is gone and all the handlers are gone and it's just the president and myself and we're just talking, the first question I ask him or her when we have a private moment is as a leader of this country, are you adding value to the people, or are you wanting the people to add value to you? There is a thin line. There is a thin line in leadership that is very easy to pass. There's a thin line between motivating people, moving people, getting them to go from here to there, leadership challenges, leadership responsibilities. There's a thin line between motivating people and manipulating people. And manipulating people, it's always wrong. A few years ago, I was speaking at the United Nations, and I was speaking to the ambassadors, and I realized all the different cultures that would be there, and they wanted me to talk to them for 2 hours on leadership. And so I shared with them in that time period that there are 3 questions that followers ask leaders. 3 questions. Doesn't matter the culture, doesn't matter the country, doesn't even matter the time. There are 3 questions that followers ask leaders. Question number 1 is, do you like me? Do you like me? Well, why would I want to follow someone that doesn't care for me? Question number 2 is, can you help me? I mean, if I follow you, is it going to get better? Are you going to lift me? I mean, why would I get in line if my life isn't going to be any better because of you? And the 3rd question, can I trust you? Can I trust you? Are you going to take my life and are you going to manipulate it, or are you going to take my life and are you truly going to make it better? And what's interesting about those 3 questions, I mean, do you like me? That's about compassion. Can you help me? That's about confidence. Can I trust you? That's about character. What's interesting about those 3 questions is basically those 3 questions that the person is asking, will you add value to my life? And intentionally adding value to people, when we do it on an everyday, consistent basis, things begin to become absolutely amazing. Now, let me give you a visual. Everything worthwhile is uphill. Everything. Life's not easy, never has been, isn't supposed to be. Everything that you and I have in our life, if it's precious and it's beautiful, it's uphill. If you have a great marriage, relationally, working on that every day, it's uphill all the way. Trust me. If you're going to be a healthy person, it's uphill all the way. It's uphill all the way. If you're going to be successful in life, if you're going to build a business, It's uphill all the way. Trust me, I've never heard of a person that built a business or was successful and they ask, well, how did you get here? I've never seen a person just look at the camera and say, I have no idea. Honest to God, I just woke up. Woo! No. That leader knows exactly how they got there. Because it's uphill all the way. And here's the problem. People have uphill hopes. And they have downhill habits. And the only way that you and I can break a downhill habit is to get intentional in our life. In fact, that's the reason I wrote the book Intentional Living. Because all of a sudden, I began to understand and realize that people that I was trying to help lead and lift and get them to go to a whole new level, that until they could turn on that switch of intentional, they could never get to where they needed to get. I mean, trust me, folks, no one has ever spoken about accidental achievement. You see, intentional living is deliberate. You really have to think about it a long time. And it's consistent. It's more than one day. To go uphill, it's day in, day out, day in, out. And I'm telling you, it's willful. You've got to come. I've got to come and make a choice in our life that we're going to live intentionally. And just like those folks in Kiev, when I looked at them and I said, you're going to have to be intentionally in everyday adding value to people. Did I say that? Because it's uphill all the way. Because can I tell you something? Significance is not about me. It's about others. Significance is it's all uphill. It's all uphill. But just as this significance is uphill of adding value as a leader to people every day, you have to understand there's a downhill habit that fights against significance, and that and significance are incompatible. And I know you say, boy, John, this is good stuff. Boy, I hope some people on my team are watching this in that simulcast. I am so glad you're talking about this. Thank God. It's not my problem. So you think you're not selfish, huh? I think we are. If you don't think you're selfish, let me ask you a question. When somebody takes a group picture of you, and you look at that picture, who is the first person you look for? And if it's a good picture, I mean, you look good. That's how you determine it's a good picture. You look at it and say, oh my gosh, good picture. Hey, send that to me. Send it. And if it's not a good picture, wait a minute. Hold it. Let's do another. Come on, let's regroup. Let's do another. You judge the whole picture on how good you look. Oh, but we're not selfish. And we don't take selfies. The reason I teach intentional living is because most people, they don't lead their life. Most people accept their life. And when you accept your life, it's unintentional. And it's downhill. So how, as leaders, if the core of leadership is truly being committed to add value to people, how do we intentionally do this? I mean, how do we start going uphill? And I'm going to give you what I call my rule of five. 5 things I do every day that intentionally adds value to people. And I just want to give them to you because they're so simple. They're so simple. And what's so beautiful is every one of you can do it. In fact, take a moment and look at your neighbor right now and say, even you can do this. Go ahead and tell them that. Amen. Oh, you're not only saying even you can do this, you're telling them how they can do this. I can tell you that right now. You're going a lot farther than I asked you to go. In fact, look at the person that you just said, even you can do this, and say, why do you think I brought you here? I mean, hello. All right, 5 things I do every day. Number 1, every day, I value people. If you're going to add value to people intentionally, it all begins foundationally with valuing people. Now, I'm a person of faith, and as I follow Jesus in all 4 Gospels, the conclusion I come after finishing the 4, watching him take steps in a short time here. The one thing I come in conclusion when I look at Jesus, if you say, John, what is the essence of Jesus? The essence of Jesus is that he values people. Oh my. Nicodemus would say, Jesus values me. The Samaritan woman would say, Jesus values me. The thief on the cross would say, Jesus values me. Children would say, Jesus values me. And when he would tell stories about the lost sheep and how he would leave the 99 to go find that one because of the value of that sheep. And he'd talk about the son that came home, that prodigal son. You just listen to the words of Jesus. You just watch the footsteps of Jesus, and Jesus valued people. And I just want you to know God values you. In fact, I just think it's a good exercise. Let's all say together, God values me. Let's say it now. God values me. And look at your neighbor and let's say, God values you. God values you. Feel better, don't we? And I want you to, let's say this with me. Say this with me. God values people I don't know. God values people. It's true, isn't it? It's true. One more, just say this one with me. God values people I don't like. We felt so good on the first 3. It's wonderful when we say, oh, God values people I don't know. Yes, but those that I know I don't like. I think we as Christ followers are going to have to make a choice. And I see this choice being pressed upon us more every day. I think as Christ followers, we're going to spend our life connecting with people or correcting them. I tell you, I cannot stay here, but my heart breaks because I think those that are not people of faith, if they would look at us, they would see us much more as correctors than connectors. And if we could just start valuing every person, period, end of story, with the love of Jesus, we would be so attractive to people. But listen to me, you can't add value to people if you don't value people. Every day I value people. Number 2, every day I think of ways to add value to people. I think of ways to add value to people. You see, intentional living is upfront thinking. You can't be intentional if you don't upfront think. And see, when you're upfront thinking, you're preparing. When you're back end thinking, you're repairing. And intentional living insists on intentional thinking, and adding value to people means that every day I think of ways that I can add value to people. So what does that mean? That means this morning when I got up in my hotel room, I knew I was going to be speaking today. How can I add value to you? What can I say? I knew I'd have a few moments with Bill. Well, how can I add value to him? What can I say to him? And I'm consistently asking myself that question every morning. Who am I going to see and how can I add value to them? Who am I going to see and how am I going to add value to them? I have 5 grandchildren. When I'm with my grandchildren, we do this exercise all the time. We'll sit around, they call me Papa. They call Margaret Mimi. Margaret, before the first grandchild was born, picked the names. She looked at me, she said, the grandchildren are going to call me Mimi. So I like that. But she said, I don't want them to call you Pee-Pee. I buy that too. So they call me Papa. And I sit with their grandchildren, and I do this with their exercise all the time with them. I'll say, okay, kids, who are we going to see tomorrow? And how we're going to add value to them. And they'll talk to me about what they're going to do tomorrow and who they're going to add value to. And the other day, James, who's 9, he's the youngest, he said, Papa, he said, I know what I'm going to do tomorrow to add value to people. I said, what is it, James? He said, I'm going to open doors for people. I said, I love that, buddy. I love that. He said, I'm going to do more than that, Papa. He said, I'm intentional. He said, I'm not only going to open doors. He said, I'm going to smile. And he said, I'm not only going to smile, I'm going to say, have a good day. I said, you got it, James. You got it, buddy. Go get him. The next evening, he's on the phone with me. Papa, I opened 42 doors today. He's 9, and he's got it. He understands the value of intentionally adding value to people.
That was absolutely amazing. He said Mr. Maxwell highlighted on a lot of points that were cut a bit too close, but it was absolutely full of wisdom. I thoroughly enjoyed that, and I'm sure you did. I took quite a few notes as well. Our next speaker is Mr. Craig Groschel. Now, Mr. Groschel is the founding and senior pastor of Life Church, an innovative church meeting in multiple US locations, as well as globally online. Now, Life Church is the creator of the YouVersion Bible app, which has been downloaded in every country worldwide. Groschel was named in the top 10 US CEOs for SMEs by Glassdoor. Traveling the world as a champion of the Global Leadership Summit, Craig Groschel advocates to grow leaders in every sector of society. He speaks frequently around the world and hosts the Craig Groschel Leadership Podcast, which is the most listened to leadership podcast in the world. Craig is a New York best-selling Times author, and his latest book is called Dangerous Prayers. Craig and his wife, Amy, and their 6 children live in Edmond, Oklahoma, an area where Life Church began in 1996. Craig's creative leadership skills are changing the way church is done worldwide. Under his leadership, Life Church has become one of the country's first multi-campus churches with over 50 weekend worship experiences at 18 different locations throughout the United States and the worldwide through Church Online. Please, let's welcome the video cast from Mr. Craig Groschel.
Challenge. It's our responsibility to lead change. But for things to get better, sometimes you have to have the courage to lead through the dip, and you'll want to change how you think about change. If you're struggling right now, your biggest temptation is to blame someone or something else. Well, it's all COVID-19's response. It's its fault. My daughter, Joy, she's 15. She said, Dad, I can't wait to have kids because the moment they ask me to go anywhere, I'm going to tell them no. Then I'm going to tell them, when I was your age, I wasn't allowed to go anywhere for a whole year. I just thought that was funny. She's planning her future parenting skills. It's COVID-19's response, or it's the economy's fault, or my staff just won't work efficiently from home. Or if you're in ministry, you can always blame lazy Christians fault, or it's the devil's fault, or if all else fails, you can always blame millennials. It's always millennials' fault. And all the millennials said, okay, Boomer, that's your response. The bottom line is this: great leaders never cast blame. Great leaders never cast blame. What do great leaders do? Great leaders take responsibility. We take responsibility. We lead through the dip. People don't hate change. They hate the way that we try to change them. So what we never do as leaders is we never ever say, our people won't. In our organization, they won't. We can't because they won't. We never say our people won't. What we say is, we have not led them to. We take responsibility. Whatever you're facing, you have the ability to lead. That's what you are. You're a leader. We don't cast blame. We take responsibility. We never say, oh, they won't. We say, we have not led them to. Leaders, hear it and take it to the bank. You can make excuses or you can make progress, but you can't make both. Somebody, it's time to change the way you think about change. What's easy, and I know at my age, I feel it, what we're tempted to do somewhere in here is we want to dig our heels in. We want to say, but this is how we do it. This is the right way. We want to keep our old assumptions and say, but this is the way that I want to do it. Listen, if you ignore the changes around you and all you do is work to guard the way you've always done it before, leaders, your desire to hold the fort may lead you to lose the war. Feel it. The world has changed. Our perspective and how we lead should change. There are new threats and there are new opportunities. Don't fight to guard the old way when perhaps you can find a new and a better way. How do we lead through the dip? Well, the first thing we have to do is change how we think about change. The second principle, I promise for some of you, this will free you and help give you permission to move forward in a way that you felt bound before. Number one, change how you think about change. Number two, have the courage to unmake promises. Have the courage to unmake promises. If you want to effectively lead through the dip, I promise you'll likely have to unmake some promises. In fact, what do we know are two of the most unifying statements on planet Earth? Two of the most unifying statements would be, number one, we will never, or we will always. And I'm guessing that you've made some type of a promise like that. We will always care about customers over profit. We will always treat everyone on our team like their family. We'll never be like one of those greedy, evil mega churches. As long as I have a voice, I don't know what you said, we'll never close this department. We'll never shut down this program. And we will never let soft drinks in the sanctuary. These bold, definitive, apparently irreversible declarations are helpful and valuable and productive until they're not. Leaders, if you're not careful, your boldest declarations could become your greatest limitations. Let me say it again. If you're not careful, those promises that you feel like are irreversible could eventually hold you back. Your boldest declarations could become your greatest limitations. We do have new challenges today like never before. But we also have new opportunities, and new opportunities demand a change of thinking. So what's the application? Whenever an old mindset is limiting your future, have the courage to unmake a promise. Let me explain this to you. Notice I didn't say break a promise, but I said unmake a promise. And this isn't a play on words. This is very accurate and true. In other words, what you're saying is we do have integrity. We've kept the promise that we made for all these years, but now because we know more and because the world is different, or because we have new threats, or because we have new opportunities, what we're doing is we're changing our strategy. We promised to do it that way, but now we're unmaking that promise and we're changing our strategy. I'll give you an example. Our church, Life Church, invented and innovated the very first church online platform back in 2006. And we're honored to minister to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in countries around the world weekly on a church online platform. Well, in 2006, 07, 08, 09, 2010, 11, 12, there were thousands of churches, tens of thousands of churches that boldly declared, we will never do church online. And they criticized us heavily. And we just said, well, as long as you're debating the validity of it or not, we're going to continue to do ministry and do anything short of sin to reach people that don't know Christ. And so we just aggressively plowed forward. And then one day we found out that other churches would like to do it, but they didn't have the resources. And so we gave away the platform. And there were, in early 2020, about 3,000 churches using the free Life Church Online platform to stream online. Enter a change in the world, a global pandemic. And there were tens of thousands of pastors who were very, very wise to unmake a promise. We will never do church online. We can no longer meet in buildings. Uh-oh. What we knew then was true to our values, but because the world has changed, we're going to unmake our promise and move church online. We are very honored today, as we were giving away the platform to 3,000 churches, to now have over 27,000 churches signed up to use the free online platform. You may need to have the courage to unmake a promise. Let me give you a business example that you might enjoy. Those of you that may be around my age, or maybe you're a little bit older, when you think of music, I'm guessing that you might have had a mixtape. Anybody have a mixtape? Did you play it on a boombox? If you know what a boombox is, raise your hand. Thank you. If that's you, you might have, if you're my age or older, you might remember walking all the way to the television to actually turn the station. Remember that? You may remember talking on a landline. Maybe remember paying long distance. May remember your mom or dad being able to pick up on the landline and hear your conversation when you talk to your girlfriend or boyfriend until 2 a.m, and you would not hang up whatsoever. You would just say, I'm not going to hang up, you hang up, I'm not going to hang up, you hang up, you hang up, I'm not going to hang up, you hang up. And then you would just sit there and breathe for an hour or so. I'm not talking about like inappropriate breathing, just breathe and just listen to each other breathe. If you know what I'm talking about, chances are very, very good that if your family had the money, you very likely had a National Geographic magazine sitting on your coffee table. Anybody know what I'm talking about? You very likely had a stack of National Geographic magazines somewhere in your house. To tell you a little bit about National Geographic, they published their very first magazine back in 1888. And were printing color photos in the very early 1900s. They were stable for a century. 1 century. of effectiveness. That is amazing leadership and durability over time. They started to struggle in the 1990s. What do you think leadership did? Leadership did not stick to a model, but instead they grasped and centered themselves around the mission. The mission is to explore and protect the planet. Let me tell you what the rally cry became, and let me tell you what it was not. The rally cry was, expand the yellow borders. The rally cry was not, print better magazines. This organization unmade some internal promises. Revenue did drop. They took some risks, and they expanded the boundaries with a diverse mix of reality TV series, partnering with celebrities, and now are a powerhouse on social media with Instagram soon approaching 200 million followers. What does this mean to you? To lead through the dip, you might need to unmake some promises, both organizationally and perhaps even personally. In fact, if I can get up into your business for just a second, I would ask you this. Have you made any personal promises limiting your leadership potential? Have you made any personal promises that may be holding back your potential influence because you're tied to something that you said in a time where you didn't know what you know now? Maybe you promised yourself or somebody else, I will always be in all the meetings no matter what. Or I would never let someone do that project for me. Or you promised, I will never bribe a 2-year-old throwing a fit in a grocery store. And now you have a 2-year-old and you have a crisis of belief. You're trying to figure out what to do. Leaders, we need to recognize the world has changed. Tell yourself the truth. Confront the brutal facts. The bottom line is this: you cannot correct what you will not confront. In order to lead through the dip, there's someone here. You need to change the way you think about change. Or perhaps, number 2, you need to unmake some promises. The third principle we need to lead through the dip is this. Number 3, you must obsess over the why. Why is it that we're doing this? Why is it that we're stepping into turmoil? Why is it that we are dipping with the hopes of rising again? Anytime that you find yourself leading through something, people may initially resist change. In fact, when you think about the reasons people change, there's only 2 reasons why people change. Number 1, they change out of desperation. Number 2, they change out of inspiration. Desperation. They change whenever they have to change. In other words, the doctor says, if you don't stop doing this, you're going to die. Or they change out of inspiration. Wow, I've got grandkids and I want to live to see them, so I'm going to stop doing this thing. They change out of desperation or inspiration. As leaders, what we want to do is we want to inspire our teams to change before they have to. And the reason is it's easier to change on your terms than when you're in big trouble. What happens when you aggressively or intentionally decide we're going to lead through change? Every time you start to lead through change, you will have 3 reactions to change. You'll have critics, you'll have bystanders, and you will have advocates. Every time you go to lead through change, you'll have critics. I hate this, and this is stupid, and why are we doing this, and we should never, ever do this. And the critics arm themselves. You have to remember, the critics will always be the loudest. In fact, the loudest boos come from the cheapest seats. Ooh, I like saying that. The loudest are always going to criticize. But leaders, you have to remember, just because they're the loudest doesn't mean they're the most. If you only listen to the loud, you might actually miss those who are most important. What do? You give them the why. Here's why we're doing this. Here's our strategy. Here's what we're hoping. We acknowledge there might be a dip, but what I want to do is I want to explain to you very, very clearly, here's why We are responding. Here's why we're initiating. Here's why we're leading in the way that we're leading. What does the why do to the three different responses? Well, the why disarms the critics. The why educates the bystanders. And the why empowers the advocates. Let me explain. The why disarms the critics. Not all critics. Some critics are just going to be critics by nature. But a reasonable critic who says, I don't like that, without understanding the full context, might hear clearly your why and say, well, that sounds reasonable. That makes sense. A clearly presented why will often disarm the critics and may even convert them to being believers. What else does the why do? Well, it educates the bystanders. We know that in many organizations, about 80% of the people just kind of go with the flow. They're just bystanders. When you clearly give them the why, suddenly they might move from being a bystander to someone who actually helps you move the mission forward. Because they say, oh, well, that makes sense. Oh, I like that. Oh, I see why this difficulty might actually lead to something better. And it empowers them, it educates them to move forward with the mission. And then finally, you have the advocates, those who are with you and for you. The why actually empowers the advocates. It gives them language, it gives them data, it gives them statistics, it gives them a very clear presentation that they can come alongside you and help lead others toward the courage to move forward through the dip. It's the why, it's the why, it's the why. Whenever you're in the dip, we have to explain the why. Why do we explain the why? Because we can tolerate the pain as long as we know there is a purpose. We can tolerate the pain as long as we know we're going somewhere. Remember the why, remember the why. This is true personally as well. If your marriage is struggling and you go to counseling and suddenly you find yourself, things are getting worse, remember why you're there. We know things may have to get worse in order for them to get better. Some of you, unfortunately, right now, you hate it, but you're furloughing some employees. Clearly explain the why. Well, we care about the organization and we care about you, and we believe that if we do this, we can get things healthier, we can bring you back, and we can make a bigger impact even as we move forward. You might be reinventing the culture of your local church. We want to help be more relevant, and so we're looking for a millennial with holes in his jeans and spiky hair and tattoos to lead worship so the presence of God can come into our place or whatever. Yeah, I'm just joking about it. Well, why are you doing this when there might be a dip? We're doing it to reach Fran's grandson. This is the why. We can endure the pain if we know that there is a reason to move forward. This is why we're making the change, believing it will lead to a better result. As leaders, you have to have the courage, maybe more now than ever before, to lead through the dip. How do we effectively lead through the dip? Well, we're going to change how we think about change. We're going to have the courage to unmake some promises. We're going to obsess about the why. And number 4, I want to encourage you to lead with confident uncertainty. To lead with confident uncertainty. Why should you continue to be confidently uncertain? Because you are most vulnerable when you are most confident. If you ask me now, what am I confident about in the future? Where are things going? What's going to happen in the world? The only thing I'm completely confident about would be 2 things. Number 1 is I have no clue where things are going. I have no idea whatsoever. And number 2, I'm confident that I am around the right people to pivot, to see opportunities, to avoid threats, and to lead to a more effective and better tomorrow. I'm confident. I don't know what's coming, but I'm also confident that great leaders will find a way to lead.
That is some really remarkable insight there. Leading with uncertain confidence. Really, really amazing. Our next speaker is Mrs. Toyin F. Sani, the convener and group CEO of Emerging Capital Group, to lead our Q&A session. Mrs. Sani is an investment banker and author with over 30 years experience. Prior to founding Emerging Africa, she was a group chief executive officer at United Capital PLC. She is a fellow, Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers fellow, Chartered Institute of Secretaries and member, Chartered Institute of Secretaries and Investments UK, and in 2017, Toyin Sani was declared the All African Businesswoman of the Year at the CNBC and Forbes Africa ABLA Awards, and the Nigerian CEO of the Year by the Pearl Awards Board. Thank you very much to our illustrious speakers, and I'd like to start the Q&A session with Mrs. Toyin Sani.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Peace, for an excellent work of hosting, these series of events. You keep getting better every time.
You. It's an honor to be here. I thoroughly enjoyed. I learn a lot every time.
Thank you, thank you. So we're so honored to have you. And I would like to start by saying that the spirit behind these engagements is very much collaboration. So the same way we have been collaborating with Peace and with CNBC Africa, we initiated this collaboration with the Global Leadership Summit. I attended the Global Leadership Summit in August, and I was blown away. And by this partnership, we have access to the speakers at the Global Leadership Summit, so that in our market, in our space, we can also perpetuate or pass across the deep learnings at this world's greatest leadership events that holds annually. We will continue to do this so that we can continue to give this access. I want to thank all of you that have joined to participate. And I must start by just sharing my key learnings from today's speakers so far. I will mention that Mr. Tonye Cole is still expected to speak, and by the grace of God will be the last speaker tonight. I will read the message that he sent to me as he boarded his flight this morning. He essentially said that heading to the airport now, I will sign in as soon as I arrive and signal when present. So, and when settled to present. So we're still waiting for him. I want to thank my dear brother, Mr. Valentine Ozigbo. That was awesome. That was mind-blowing. And so to lead the Q&A, what I want to do is quickly recap the learnings that we have received from the speakers we have had thus far, and then add my own points, and then take the questions that we have. Please, if you have not put your question in the Q&A box, please go ahead and put your questions in the Q&A box now. Mr. Ozigbo will answer most of them, and I will support him in a very modest way. Some people are asking how they get the recorded video. We will get the permission of the Global Leadership Summit. With their permission, we will send you the full video. Those were just 20-minute clips from like 1 hour, presentations that were powerful. I was blessed to be part of the main leadership summit this year. So Mr. Ozigbo, my dear brother Valentine, multiple award winning. We'll have to sit down together to compare the awards. I think you've won more awards than me. So I think you've won more awards than me, all kinds of awards, 7-star awards, international awards. He's a multiple award winner. Mr. Ozigbo, you told us that the universe is vast, and that as vast as the universe is, so are the possibilities from our nation and indeed our continent in Africa. You said for us to be disruptors and to implement the quality of change that we need in Africa, that we need to be obsessed, we need to be bold, we need to reject the status quo, and we need to recognize that we belong in the big leagues. I mean, I'm going to be giving you close marking because I want to operate in the big leagues. We need to implement, we need to get comfortable with revolutionary thinking and we must be gender neutral. I can testify that you are gender neutral. You have contributed to the rise of a lot of women, and they are doing amazing things. Thank you, and God bless you. And that Africa needs disruption and revolutionary leaders in every area and in every sector. And you mentioned the major sectors, and that we need to invent new models. And we're looking for outliers across the continent who feel the pulse of the continent and want to get things done. We've done too much talking. It's time to get things done. Thank you for being a doer and for demonstrating it by making the sacrifice that you have made so that you can serve your people. We wish you the best of luck. Now, and that we should actualize our ideas. And then I love those words. Let's see things happen. Please, if anybody has any questions arising from this very brief summary from the amazing, impactful presentation by Mr. Ozigbo that I just summarized briefly, please put your questions up. I have some questions that we will address in a minute. Now, John Maxwell was simply amazing. And, it started with telling us how to be intentional. And there are 3 questions that people ask leaders. And I noticed Mr. Ozigbo listening very carefully. 3 questions people ask leaders. Do you like me? Can you help me? Can I trust you? Do you like me? Speaks to compassion. Can you help me? Speaks to competence. Can you make my life better? And can I trust you? Speaks to character. What is your character? And then he expressed that all leadership, genuine and successful leadership, and all success in life is uphill. And that's why you must get intentional. So in other words, if you're not intentional, things will fall apart. But if you are and he said a lot of people are not living their lives. They are accepting what they find. They're not living by intention. So he encourages people to live by intention. He says significance is an uphill task. Selfishness and significance are incompatible. And then he now goes into how we must commit to add value to people every day. And he says the things that he does daily, the 2 that we capture today, adding value, valuing people, and upfront thinking of ways to add value to people. As we go to the people are putting the questions. Okay, fine. Please put it in Q&A. I will get a feed if they're in quick Q&A and they're not in. I prefer it not to be in the chat because we've had a lot of lively conversation today. They could get lost in the chat. So put it in the Q&A. And it says we should take responsibility for leading change. Oh, now I'm going to Craig Groschel, and that was mind-blowing as well. So he talked about the change process and that change initiatives begin with a dip. Then before you begin to rise, and that leaders must take responsibility for leading change and must see opportunities in every change. And he said that we must lead the people to change. People don't hate change. They change the way we lead them to change or the way we want to lead them to change. And we must recognize that if they're not changing, we can't say our people don't like change. We have to say we have not led our people to like this. And the 4 points were change how we think about change, have the courage to make promises. That was mind-blowing. Obsess over the whys, and then lead with confident uncertainty, because you are most vulnerable when you are certain, when you are too confident. But when you recognize that in this world of the pandemic, you don't know what is happening, you don't know what's coming next, then you are cautious and you are able to make a difference. And of course, he talked about the impact of explaining the whys. And the whys disarm the critics, they educate the bystanders, and they empower the advocates with data, with statistics, with language, with presentations. And let me just leave that and go to my own very brief intervention before we take the questions. The first thing I want to talk about today, and I'm not going to talk for more than 5 minutes. The first thing I want to talk about today is what many of us do not like to talk about, and that is failure. One of the things that come to mind when you are in a season of disruption and when you are in a season of heavy challenges like what we're facing in this country at this time is actually the specter of failure. And people are so afraid of failing. And unfortunately, sometimes the fear of failing could terrorize leaders and followers alike into making mistakes that they ought not to make. What should be the attitude of a leader, and what should be the attitude of a wise follower at a time like this? What should be your attitude to failure in a season of these kind of changes? And I'm going to start by saying that, and again, these are my learnings from the Leadership Summit this year. There are 3 types of failures. There are preventable failures, where we know how to do it right, where your team knew how to do it right. Now, when you knew how to do it right and you didn't do it right, that was a preventable failure. And yes, you need to caution yourself over that. There's a second type of failure, a complex failure. This is a set of failures, when a set of factors combine in novel ways to produce undesired outcomes in familiar contexts. Let me give you an example. A failure as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic for many organizations qualifies rightly as a complex failure, because unexpected circumstances, for somebody who is operating in a market like ours, unexpected circumstances, the COVID-19 itself, the recession that we just came out of 2 years ago, the impact that it then had on oil prices, and then on the supply chain, disruptions, and even also on demand chain disruptions. These complex factors or different factors essentially combined together to put us in a difficult situation. You don't kill yourself and beat yourself over the head unduly for a complex failure. You just learn how to prepare yourself for the next time you find yourself in that kind of situation. There's a third type of failure, is intelligent failures. These are undesired results of thoughtful forays into novel territories. My brother Valentine Ozigbo said we must reinvent solutions. If you are trying to reinvent a solution, if you are trying to fix a problem that has never been fixed before, if you are trying to lead change and you are trying to make a difference, there will be failures. Now, these type of failures are classified as intelligent failures. You don't beat yourself over the head, you congratulate yourself for those failures. Because if you had never ventured, if you had never tried to make a difference, if you had never tried to move us forward, you would never have failed in the first place. So again, recognize the 3 types of failure. Preventable failures, those you must not repeat. Complex failures, those you should not kill yourself over. You learn from them. Intelligent failures, you congratulate yourself for making them, because they are the undesired results of your thoughtful forays into novel territory. You are deliberately moving into new territory. You are deliberately trying to make a difference. There will be failures. Now, what are the elements of an intelligent failure so that you can recognize it? 1, the opportunity you are exploring is significant. 2, the outcome will be informative and transformative, or transformative. The outcome will be informative. 3, the cost and scope are manageable. So of course, you identify what you are prepared to risk, the value you are prepared to put at risk for the purpose of this exploration. So the cost and the scope, they're manageable. And the key assumptions that you have made in making this foray, they are explicitly articulated. So you have sat down with your team and you have said, we're going to make an intelligent foray. We're going to try and make a difference. We're going to solve this problem. And these are the assumptions that we're making. That is an intelligent failure. So, and then I learned that you have to fail well. How do you fail well? You reduce preventable failures. You anticipate and mitigate complex failures. You get better each time at complex failures, and you promote intelligent failures. Every leader must promote intelligent failures in your organization. You don't beat people over the head for it. You actually promote it. Now, your people will not make intelligent failures, and they will not make forays or attempt to improve things or to invent anything if you do not create what we call psychological safety. We have been exploring psychological safety at Emerging Africa. There must be a sense of psychological safety that allows your people to explore new grounds. If as a leader, they don't feel safe and they feel like you're going to kill them with a sledgehammer every time you get it wrong, they will stop trying. So what is the standard frame of mind of a leader that does not provide psychological safety? First of all, they think that employees are self-interested and untrustworthy. Secondly, the top management always knows best about issues of organizational importance. So you think you know best, the others don't know anything. And then the third thinking that can destroy innovation in an organization and kill intelligent failures is that unity, agreement, and consensus are signs of organizational health. This one blew my mind. If I give you an example now and I say, give me some signs of a healthy organization, you say, oh, a place where everybody agrees with one another, there's unity, there's consensus, you know, and disagreement and dissent is a sign of a bad organization. Am I correct? They're fighting with one another. They don't agree. It's a sign and they should be avoided. Guess what? It's a lie. The most intelligent organizations where people move forward, they reframe their thinking. And how do they think? Employees are trustworthy and well-intentioned. Everyone in the organization has access to information and essential ideas. Everyone brings value to the table, and we must give them an opportunity to demonstrate and to share what they have. And thirdly, unity, agreement, and consensus are risk factors. Disagreement and dissent are signs of organizational health. Let me repeat that. Unity, consensus, all of you, all ducks in a row, all heads in the same direction, all of you thinking the same way. It is actually a risk factor. It is a danger for your organization because it means you are all thinking the same way. And when you want to enter the gutter or you want to crash, you will all enter the gutter and crash at the same time because there will be no voice that is saying, sir, CEO, MD, I think we should look at this differently. You must deliberately encourage dissent and disagreement. And what do you do as a leader in closing, therefore? So remember, you must reframe these thought processes to build psychological safety. What do you then do as a leader to encourage psychological safety? And I can see my brother Tony is here. He came just on time. It's amazing. Fantastic. So we then have the Q&A with all of us together. You're welcome. I hope your flight was good. So what do you think you should do as a leader to encourage, psychological safety? When you want to take a decision and everybody is in agreement, you don't decide, you stop and you reconvene and you probe and you keep asking probing questions until the voice of dissent comes up. And then you listen to all those opinions and you address them. You don't decide until a voice of dissent has been heard. On that note, I'm going to hand over to Peace so that she can introduce our last speaker for the night. I saw him now. I don't see him again. Maybe it's me. Yeah, maybe we lost him for a minute, and I'm going to encourage my team to try and quickly track him down and just be sure that he didn't have any difficulty. Thank you. You are very welcome, Mr. Tony. God bless you, my dear brother. Thank you for joining us. You came just on time. So, Peace, what do you want to do? Maybe we should allow Mr. Ozigbo to answer one question, and as soon as we see Mr. Tony on again, Peace will introduce him because I would like him to be present when his citation is being read, and then we can come back. So very quickly, Mr. Ozigbo, I have one or two questions for you. Let me take one. If we have time, we'll take a second one before Mr. Tony Cole comes back again. Somebody wants you to explain the meaning of a disruptive leader because it doesn't sound so good to be disruptive. I hope you got that.
Thank you so much. I got the two things I like to add before I go into responding to this. My internet has actually been quite unstable. I hope I can be heard.
We can hear you.
You can hear me well, right?
Yeah, for now, yeah, we can hear you well. We can hear you.
Toyin, you can hear me well, right?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, very good. You know, amazing listening to John and Craig, and also what an excellent summary. I think your summary was even better than the way I presented it, so thank you. Now, you know, when I think about, there's a quote from C.S. Lewis, which you know, spoke to the point he made about, you know, failures. Especially when we talk about intelligent failures. And all of them, both the preventable and the complex one. And it says here, we all want progress. But progress means getting nearer to the place where you want to be. And if you have taken a wrong turn, then to go forward does not get you any nearer. If you are on progress, therefore means going on about turn and walking by mad and refusing to admit it. The earlier we get to
I think we will meet him, and Peace, would you kindly introduce Mr. Tonyeko? Thank you.
Most definitely. That was some really, really brilliant notes I was making from your breakdown of each of the speakers. Thank you very much, Ms. Sani. So Mr. Tonyeko, just to have a brief...
Sorry.
Yeah.
I think it's the connection.
Yeah.
Okay, so while we sort out the connection for Mr. Ozigbo, we're going to have a brief background about...
Sorry, Mr. Ozigbo, we're going to mute you because we're not able to hear.
We'll have a brief background about Mr. Cole before he joins us. Now, Mr. Cole is alumni of the University of Lagos and Harvard Business School, and currently part of the Transformational Leadership Fellowship, a program at the Blankfeet School of Government, Oxford. He is the co-founder and former group executive director of Sahara Group, an energy conglomerate with operations in Africa and beyond. Passionate about social impact and governance, Mr. Cole spearheaded the Sahara Foundation, which supports the actualization of the UN SDGs. He is the founder of the NGO Nehima Youth Empowerment Initiative, which aims to influence change in Africa. He's also established the Behavioral Health Institute set up for the study and management of behavioral health issues in Nigeria. He is an active supporter of the Down Syndrome Foundation, Slum to School Foundation, and Compassionate Center, amongst others. In September 2018, Mr. Cole made a life-changing decision to pursue a career in politics, to transform the political narrative of his home state. In December 2019, New African named Mr. Cole amongst the top 100 influential Africans alive. He is a speaker, a writer, a teacher, and a mentor. He is married to Dr. Sylvia Cole, and they have 3 adult children. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on a flight, Mr. Tonye Cole. It is actually remarkable that you're joining us.
Peace, Antonio. What a day. So I just landed a few minutes ago, and I was hoping that I'll get about 10 minutes so that I can get off the plane. But then I see that you're already introducing me. But can you hear me?
Yes, very clearly.
Okay. All right.
And it's great to see that you're COVID friendly.
Yeah, so I have to keep my mask on. I have to sit in my seat and address you. But look, first of all, thank you very much. And Tony, well done. The topic that you have selected at this time is so critical because not only are we in disruptive times, we need to be ready and prepared for what is coming in 2021. Now, 2020 in itself has been such a challenging year to so many people, but at the same time, it has been a year of rebooting to a lot of others. There are many people who I know came into the crisis already understanding that if you have a crisis of this magnitude, then the first thing that it means is that those who are prepared to take advantage of it will come out of it incredibly on the high side. So any crisis of such a magnitude requires a different type of thinking. I remember at the beginning of this crisis, the first thing that struck most people was fear. Fear of the unknown. What exactly is going to happen? So a lot of people came into the crisis. You can hear me well, okay? Okay, exactly. Okay, so a lot of people came into, I remember in March or thereabouts, one of the first things that we heard were people asking, how long is this going to be for? No one knew exactly what to expect. Is this a long-term thing? Is this a short-term thing? But after about 4 weeks, it became clear that you needed to think differently. So if you're going to lead in disruptive times, the first aspect of it, sorry about this. So I'm sorry. Sit down. So the first thing that you need to challenge yourself is, do you have the ability to think differently? Why must you think differently? Everybody else is going to be challenged by the disruption. You have to be different. So sorry guys, bear with me as I compete with my captain. All right. Yeah. So, Tony, one of the things that came into 2020 for me, personally, and both for as a company and all of that, was that the first aspect was that we knew that if you did not innovate and if you did not think very, very sharp, that you are going to go down. So the mindset of anybody who is going to go into a disruptive situation is important. You cannot allow fear to overcome you. You must be able to look at the fear, look at it in the eye, and make up your mind that you will come out on top at the end of it, regardless of how long it takes. The mindset of anyone who is going to handle disruption is extremely critical. It is what I found out when dealing with this whole period of COVID, that those who have the wrong mindset ended up in self-destruction. That's why you had depression. You had a lot of people who became mentally unstable in this period. But those who saw it as an ability to pivot were critical. So the next aspect of it, if you're going to lead differently, you must be able to look at your business critically and decide whether or not it was time to pivot. On a personal note, I realized almost immediately around about November last year that one of the things that we needed to do was to begin to invest in technology-enhanced business, because it was clear that where the future was going to, especially in Africa, was that technology enhancement in any business was important. Now we saw that happen in logistics, we saw it happen in agriculture, we saw it happen in health, we saw it happen even in philanthropy. Data has become critical. We've always known that data is king. And if you don't have data, you cannot cope. So good. So one of the challenging things that we had to look at was how can you gather data in a place where data has been historically lacking. Now we invested in a company that does data gathering, and we have seen that data and analytics has been so important moving forward. So if you're going to think differently in this place, make sure that you can get access to data. Make sure that fear is overcome by the way you look at fear and you attribute fear. Another thing that I have found very important in leading in disruptive places is surround yourself with people who think differently. This is so critical because a lot of people driven by fear drove other people down. You must be able at this time to gather yourself around people who are looking at taking advantage of the scenario around you. I never, ever, ever in this period discussed with anyone who was going to tell me that things were not going well. For me, it was important that we went very well. I'm going to walk off the plane in a minute. So it was extremely important that we took advantage of it. Sorry. That we took advantage of the situation. So please think differently. Take advantage of the situation. Surround yourself with people who are different, who are like you. Very, very, very important. Very important. So don't keep yourself with people who will drag you down. Please never do that, right? No, Allah. And then I think, Tony, the last thing I would say in this aspect of it is take advantage. Thank you. Take advantage of the position that you have, right, to ensure that funding, even in this time, is available. How does this work? The ideas that you have at this time are critical, very, very critical. Why? Because there are so many problems that need solving. Once you can bring solutions to the problems that you have a totally different mindset. Let me leave it at this for now. I know that there are some questions which you can answer, but please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Cole. Your contribution is amazing. And just the fact that you were able to do it in such an uncomfortable position is really demonstrating the entire theme of today's talk. You really just did a phenomenal demonstration. It's not comfortable, it's not convenient, but you made it happen. And that's also a testament to and how rich a leader you are, to be able to build a network where people are willing to go that extra mile to make it happen and have confidence in you and your leadership to add value to your vision. And so, I mean, that was just an amazing demonstration. And I hope everyone who was watching saw that, because that was phenomenal. I'm going to go back to Mrs. Toy and Sonny. That's a huge lesson. I'm blown away by it. And I want please take a note. But
no, I must add something else. You must always be ready to improvise. If you're going to lead, never be afraid of improvisation. It is extremely important.
It is amazing.
Sorry.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much, my dear brother Tony. And you said do it afraid, you know. Awesome. You still want to speak? Please go ahead. You
no,
didn't
I think it was someone else. No, it wasn't me. It wasn't me.
Okay, wasn't cool. Thank you. So thank you, and thank you for letting us know that you should do it afraid. Just do it. and you should be ready and willing to improvise. And you've demonstrated, actually how to lead, even when you are in, as it were, a disruptive environment. I think that's a practical lesson. It's been amazing listening to all the speakers, and I'm going back to the Q&A. I don't know whether Mr. Ozigbo is able to attempt the earlier question. Should we try one more time and pray that the internet is better now? My brother Val, are you there? Let's try one more time. You were going to respond to the question, is disruption a good thing? Why should you be a disruptive leader? Okay, whilst we wait for him, I'm going to read another question, and then I will... David Daniel wants to know, how can we initiate a national sense of responsibility for young leaders, as leaders have failed us in this part of the world? Great question. How can we initiate a national sense?
Maybe, I don't know if I could.
Go ahead. Go for it. Go.
All right, thank you. I don't know, the moment I started talking about disruption, my internet has been disrupting ever since. I don't know what's going on. I've decided to kill the video to see if it would permit me. I was reading out a quote from C.S. Lewis, basically pointing to some of what we've spoken about here. And the whole essence of that quote is indeed, when we are on a wrong path, and in some cases, it doesn't really mean when you're on the wrong path, because even when you're on the right path, there may be a better path. When you are on a path that is not optimal, the best thing to do sometimes, especially when it's wrong, is actually to make a roundabout turn, a U-turn. And the man who does that faster is actually the most progressive of them all. And so the quicker we can tell ourselves the truth, the quicker we can become personally authentic, the better for us. And this takes me to two things that have actually helped me in life at a great length. One, being emotionally intelligent. Being emotionally intelligent is truly about valuing people, just like Craig was talking about, valuing humanity, showing respect and courtesy to one another, and loving humanity for who they are, their individuality, because indeed we're all diverse, we can be the same. And so when people have a different opinion, you actually just have to respect those opinions. Even if you need to correct them, you do that in love. And so, that takes me to your question about what a disruptive leader is. Indeed, we want to use the word disruption on a positive side. It's not about bringing chaos and mayhem to status quo. No, it's actually about changing it for the better. And therefore, disruptive leaders are positive, disruptive thinkers, people who basically do the things that are non-conventional, look for newer thinking, newer ideas, newer insights, and through this, bring the much needed change that we're looking for. And therefore, when you hear disruptive leaders, they're actually those who have basically trashed competition, that has left competitors scrambling their heads, because indeed the world will simply move unless they conform with this new reality. So we all want to be disruptive leaders, people who are ahead of others, who are on top and doing new things and bringing the next generation to bear. And we can be this in every sector, like I've spoken about, and we should be honest enough when we are failing to admit that we're failing and do the needed correction. And I love the way you summarized the preventable, the complex and intelligent failures, because once we understand this, we are able to do what I call scenario planning. Scenario planning is about, especially in an uncertain world that we live in, because you don't know what is going to happen. You build scenarios so that at every instant, whatever happens, there is a response that is premeditated that is proactive in nature, so that we are not always caught napping, running around when things are going wrong. We can plan better. Even for the COVID, if you are leveraging on the strengths of scenario planning, we can do things to minimize failure, just like, again, you've summarized. So thank you.
So very much, Mr. Ozigbo, and I think it was a great idea to remove the video because it just helped. I have one more question, and I'm so happy because both Tony and Val are he for she's. In fact, you are both certified he for she's. So we have a question from Shirley here. What role can male leaders play in genuinely giving their female counterparts an opportunity or platform to take the lead and make their mark? And it's open to either of you.
I'll leave my boss to take the first shot.
No, go ahead and answer. I'm doing my capture. Let me finish. I'll call you back.
Okay. For me, I really don't believe in giving opportunity. That's actually been, patronizing, because it is actually for the men to know when to give way. Because indeed, a society that does not understand the power in women is a society that is doomed to fail. The truth is, there's so much we've seen already to demonstrate the fact that the much we can do is fire on all cylinders. Once all you do in life is enthroning competency, leave the women, they will have their own table. You don't need to patronize them. When you are searching for the next person to hire, the next person to partner with, the next person to engage in, forget about the sex and bring competency to bear. And when you do that,
Actually, please. Val has knocked off.
Yeah, I think you can take off where he.
Okay, but you can hear me. You can hear me well now.
We can hear you.
will take their own place normally. And this, trust me, I've seen this, what some are building. If you go back to when I just left, Transcorp, as MD of and CEO of the Transcorp, we realized that it's, hello, it looks like my network again is disrupting.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, I think that's the point. I don't want to be long so that I don't, So the point here is all the men will need to do is focus on competency, and the women will have the rightful place.
Thank you. Thank you. So in summary, the point he's making is that be gender neutral. I think he made that point earlier. Be gender neutral, and that women are capable and they're competent, and that if you focus on competence, the right candidates will emerge. Do you agree with that, Mr. Tony Colley, or is there room for positive affirmative action in support of women, filling the gender gap? I think he's trying to settle into. I believe Mr. Cole is still at the airport. Okay, there was a question about a point made by John Maxwell, and I'm going to attempt.
Tony, can you hear me?
We can hear you now, yes.
Okay, so let me answer that. Absolutely. So one of the things that I used to be one that was not quite on affirmative action, because I thought it was kind of demeriting to the women who. But then I found out over time that it is an actual mistake for us not to take it seriously. Because essentially, if you look at what happened in Senegal and
We lost you. Mr. Cole was mentioning what happened in Senegal, and I'm aware there's possible.
So both Senegal,
Yes.
exactly, both Senegal and Rwanda pushed that agenda, and today what you are seeing is that there is absolute positivity in the parliament in both countries because women are now represented. There are three things that women suffer in North in Africa. One, representation. So we have to correct it with affirmative action. Second, access to resources. Okay, they are always pushed down at the end of the day when it comes to when it comes to resources, finance, and all of those things. So resource representation and the last R that you would find is right. Women are always pushed down so that their rights are not up. Now, rights are represented through legislation. So the minute you can push legislation and you can have representation, then you would have rights. Now, once you have representation and you have rights, then access to resources becomes easier. So for women, once you can do that affirmative action for women, you're positioning them much better for them to be to have their rights and resources. So for me, I'm a believer in it.
Thank you very much. So I believe the points from both speakers, Mr. Ozigbo says, if you emphasize competence and you don't discriminate against women, the women are competent, they will emerge. Now, Mr. Cole is adding that because of the huge challenges that the women face in terms of low representation, in terms of low access to resources, and in terms of the fact that their rights, they have over time, their rights are not guaranteed by law, so to speak. He believes that there's room for positive affirmative action. I appreciate both points, and I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think, you know, a lot of women who are competent are being ignored simply because people are looking for the best man for the job. But I also believe that there is room to improve the lot of women generally through positive regulatory action and other affirmative action. So wonderful points from both of you, sirs. Thank you very much. I have a question here from Shofela Olamilekon that John Maxwell said, intentional living is upfront thinking. Please expatiate more on this. Thank you. Ms. Okay, let me attempt it. It says intentional living is upfront thinking. I believe, okay, am I getting one of my speakers who wants to respond to this? Okay, let me continue. So I believe the point he was making is that, and by the way, I believe this is one of the laws of physics, that everything remains in the state it is if nothing is done. And the way I see it, for example, in nature, is that if you leave a garden uncultivated, you're not going to come tomorrow and see a beautiful vegetable bed. You're going to see a garden filled with shrubs. So nothing positive grows if it has not been consciously and deliberately cultivated. And so if you want your life to go in a particular direction, you are going to need to sit down, make up your mind which direction you want to go, and you're going to take specific steps to get there. That is intentional living. Life does not just turn rosy for you by wishing and unfortunately just by praying. You pray and then you act. And that's why even Jesus said, watch and pray. And he said that every success in life, success is always uphill. Success is always uphill. That's what John Hill said. He said, and so he said that you can't find any successful person who will wake up and say, and they say, how did you become successful? You ask Mr. Tony Cole, how did you become a billionaire? How did you become the founder of Sahara Energy? And he's not going to come back and tell you that, oh, I just woke up and I found myself there. He said there's no such thing. There's no such success story. He's going to tell you the day he got the vision. He's going to tell you how he went about implementing the vision. He's going to tell you about the hurdles he faced process along the way, how he navigated his way, and then how he got to where he was headed. And that's how, so success is intentional and it's upfront thinking. You think ahead of where you want to go, and then you go that way. And I believe that's really the point that was being made there. And he said something.
Can I add something here, please?
Yes, you may. One last little thing that he said that I loved. He said also that your and I don't want to miss it. He said about success being uphill. Yes, he said you can't have uphill goals and downhill habits. Now the problem with many of us is that we have uphill goals. We want to go to the top, but we have downhill habits. We can't even get up early enough in bed and get things done. Mr. Ozigbo, please take it away.
Thank you. Just even before coming to that, I like the way Tony Cole also, clarified on affirmative action. And I totally 100% agree. The only thing I actually want to add is, indeed, when people have failed to recognize meritocracy, competency in what they do, then affirmative action is what helps in correcting that failure. But ultimately, if we actually, as a people, can always focus on those three things that, I believe it was Craig that summarized them, or John, which is basically compassion, character, and competence, those three C's. If these are the things we are focusing on, there may not even be any need for affirmative action. It is when we have failed to recognize this, and now we're seeing this manifest in the representation, in the rights, and all of that, then affirmative action will need to come in. But I want us to move to a point where we simply just look at merits. And with that, trust me, and I'm seeing the need for this, especially in politics. I remember when I got into active politicking, and I'm moving around, and I'm trying to choose, for instance, who is going to be the DG of my campaign. How many DGs of campaign have been women? You hardly find any. But guess what? Is it that they can't do it? Obviously they can. And so because of the long history of that deprivation, you need to have an affirmative action that actually push somebody up and make the person be on that table competent-wise. So I totally agree, but it's good that I'm bringing this interjection. Now, on this issue of basically the question that was asked about, being upfront thinking. Now, just like you've summarized that, Toyin, what I've come to conclude is most times success cannot be by accident, but by design. And unfortunately, in Nigerian politics, I like to also bring in here, because this is so important, we have only usually succeeded in the past, or even in the present, politically, by accident, not by design. Because if we do this by design, it will be impossible for political parties to push up incompetent people on the ballot. That at a point you're seeing people who are contesting for either governorship, in some cases even presidential, and they don't have any reason to be on the ballot because we haven't been able to entrench competency, because it's not been a part of a system. There's no design around it. And when you look at the countries that have succeeded, for instance, China, you will see that it's impossible for an incompetent person to emerge as the leader of China because it's been done by design. So if we really want to succeed at all times, it's got to be part of a design process, and design thinking, and what I call, introspective and, basically premeditated plans, and not just us always reacting and being a victim of accidental, happenings. And in some cases we do succeed, but when we see those successes, it's just because somebody has been pushed up by accident. Thank you.
Tony, Val has made such a critical point, which we need to pay attention to. In the event of politics, and affirmative action and women's rights without putting our foot down in Nigeria, where both have been in politics, Val is coming into politics as well. You are not going to see women representation at the top if it is left to merit. There are so many women that are meritorious and should be at the very top. There's no reason why Nigeria cannot have a female president or a female governor. But the way the system is structured, it is not going to happen unless there is absolute support, first from the men and then affirmative action to make it happen. So there's work to be done. And I love the fact that he's put it up. We are in a very disruptive time now. This is a very disruptive season. And if we are going to disrupt politics, we need to also disrupt it by having women engage at the very top of decision making within the political sphere. So please hold on to it. It is critical.
Thank you. So you encourage positive affirmative action. We need to disrupt the system. The system is rigged against women. And I totally agree, whether by design or otherwise. And we also want our Kamala Harris effect in Nigeria. So I got a question from Anne-Me. Anne-Me is in London, and she says Dr. Ozigbo spoke about the requirement to lead the charge. And I know that he's pushing this. Toyin, you are an inspirational leader. How is he thinking? Thank you, Anne, I appreciate that. How is he thinking that this change can happen? And how open are organizations in Africa to accept this change? So Val, please feel free to start this, and then Toyin can add something to it.
Sorry, I lost some of those and when you were reading out the question because of my network. Can you just go over it one more time?
Yes, that you spoke about the requirement to lead the charge. And how do you think this change, the type of change you identified that we need, how do you think it can happen? And how open are African organizations to accepting this change?
Well, to be honest, what I always tell people is strive your best, apply yourself to the fullest, and be the best you can be in anything that you do. And just like we have done in the private sector, that also can happen in the public sector. And it's all about having the right person, the competent person, the right heart, somebody who has a fear of God, who values people, somebody who understands the meaning of competency and who entrenches competency in everything he or she does. When you have the right person who then envisions, brings about the big idea, where the corporation can get to, where the government can get to, and you begin to craft that vision and then create the buy-in of everybody, all the people that are part of the process, the citizenry, the staff in the case of corporate body. When you're able to achieve this, you go into then execution, fierce execution, basically to monitor, measure, and of course, develop the governance framework to ensure that the processes are all second to none. And you're able to do a value for money audit, and then you imbibe that right culture, that Kaizen culture, the change for the better culture, a culture that challenges every status quo. Basically saying, is this still necessary? Going to the why question, all the whys, and I love the way we spoke about the whys here, how the why can actually get us to where we want to get to. If you bring in that culture that challenges the status quo, where you are looking for things that are going well and how to amplify those, things that are not going well and jettisoning them, and all of this, if you do justice what I've just shared here, this little simple thing I've just shared here, magic can happen. It can happen in the private sector, it can happen in the public service. And this is actually what I'm here to show the direction, especially to help to inspire professionals to get into politics, so that when we are succeeding, others are going to come copy the template, because we are here actually to set a completely new standard for governance. And this is what I think my dear state Anambra can witness in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Imagine Africa is going to charge you for the free campaign. So just two more questions. Our time is fast spent. Two more questions, and then I'll hand over back to Peace to go to thanks and Mr. Cole, sir. How can we change the money-based factor in Nigeria to a genuine leadership where leadership will emerge what they have to offer rather than
I'm already laughing at that question because it is so serious, and it's something that it's a dilemma to everybody. So the first thing, if you're going to ever change anything from money, it means that you have to create an ideology. Okay, what we are missing in Nigeria, first of all, is that we don't have an ideology that people gather around, and because of the lack of ideology, something that is a higher calling that we are looking towards, then people will gravitate towards what they can touch, what they can feel, and essentially what they can touch and feel are material things. The second aspect of this is that if you don't have an ideology that translates to a national issue, then the ideology you're going to build around is spiritual religious issue. So you find that those two things are the things that are paramount in Nigeria, religion and money, and none of them will develop Nigeria. I'm serious. Neither of them will. So what you now need to do is create an ideology that, yes, can be based. You can have the religion to guide your morals, and you can have money, right, for you to be able to do good. No problem. However, Nigeria as a nation must be paramount in your mind. We don't have an ideology, and we must develop one if we are going to develop. So that's where we are. It's working.
Thank you so much, TC. So Valentine, and that will be the last.
To whoever answers this, okay, all right. So we're going around now asking the question.
We're losing you. The question is from David Olorunikba. So the last question, thank you very much, Mr. Cole. Brilliant answer. And the last question.
Democracy, the right is this the right governance? So, sorry, over to you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. So sorry. I mean, I caught it. I didn't hear you for a minute. But thank you for the answer. So thank you, David, for asking. The last question is for Mr. Valentine Ozigbo. And it says, we had so many questions and comments. I apologize that we couldn't take all, but that is a sign that it's been a lively conversation. How do you entrench good leadership despite internal resistance? And I believe this is relevant at public sector, private sector. You know, there will be resistance when you're trying to change things. But we've been told today that people don't hate change. They hate the way you try to change them. So, Mr. Ozigbo, how do you entrench good leadership despite internal resistance?
By actually making a fantastic presentation of the why. And the answer has been provided by Craig when he said that when you have a proper presentation of why, guess what happens? You're able to disarm your critics. You're able to basically empower your advocates. And then of course, for those who are bystanders, they're actually converted. And so truly, there are people who are going to be resistant to change. But when you make them see reason, you know, people also used to talk about so much money in politics and co. And for some of us who actually want to make some changes, you can't change from the outside. You can only change in some cases, in most cases, from the inside. When we get there, these are part of the things we want to see. You know, get them mentored and help to ensure that they actually get a fair share, where basically all you need is a level playing field for these guys, and eventually the competency will be entrenched. Because we know that the best thing we can do is to demonstrate success by what we have done, and people will see. You know, one of the things I also want to include here is succession planning. When you have done so well as a leader, and you leave and you let the company or the state or whatever prestatator to be in the wrong hand, clearly every good thing you've done there can be destroyed in one day. And so how do we build systems? How do we, basically build systems that will make sure those legacies last? And this is why it is important to solve the leadership problem that we have. This is why we can't keep allowing money confuse people, and let people understand that we need to focus on competency, character, personality of the individual, who can help, or who are going to be selfless in what they do and care about the common people. And when this happens, and we're able to sustain and build a system that will be sustainable, we are actually on the right track to what I call a sustainable organization in the case of company or state in terms of public service. Thank you.
I'm so grateful to you all. Peace, I think I should hand over to you.
Thank you. That was an amazing question and answer session. Thank you so much, Mrs. Sani, and our speakers for such an insightful discussion and informative Q&A session. I'd like to invite Mr. Fumbi Akinloyi to give a vote of thanks just before we sign off, please.
I want to give, I want to say a very big thank you to all the participants from around the world. You're taking time out to participate in today's event. It has helped make it, along with our all-star panel of speakers and our esteemed hosts, it has helped to make it not just a success, but a resounding and rousing success. I put those two R's there because not just is it a success, but it's been a resounding and rousing success, because I speak for myself, and I'm sure this is the same for you all. We are moved to take action. We are moved to lead. I've taken copious notes, which won't just be notes, but actually marching orders. So I want to thank our all-star panel of speakers, Mr. Valentine Ozigbo, Mr. Tony Cole. So that again was, that's something for the ages. You persisted despite the seeming disruptions on the plane and down in the airport terminal. Our convener, Mrs. Tony Sani, Mr. John Maxwell, and Pastor Craig Groschel. I also want to thank our dear sponsors, Emerging Africa Capital Group, the organizers, Emerging Africa Capacity Building, the Global Leadership Summit, and the excellent men of the Life Place Church of Redeemed Christian Church of God. A big thank you to you all. This has been nothing short of life-changing. Thank you.
Our host. Don't forget our host.
So sorry, Ms. Hyde. Please, a very esteemed host who is a friend of the house. I mean, she with her customary excellence, she's hosted a series of these webinars for Emerging Africa Capital Group. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been an absolute pleasure. Every single session is mind-blowing, and there's so much wisdom being shared. Today's one for me felt extra special because there were so many examples of leadership in action with Mr. Ozigbo's internet, as you described it. The connection did not facilitate, but he just kept on going regardless and gave us some brilliant insights. And also Mr. Tonya Cole as well, from the plane to the hallway it was amazing. And thank you so much, Mrs. Sani, for creating this platform to give us the opportunity to learn and get valuable insight that we would not ever have access to. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you everyone for joining us for the 3rd edition. And it's been lovely hearing from each and every single one of you. I wish you all an amazing evening, and I look forward to the next Emerging Africa